So for a long time, a lot of wrestling fans stopped feeling excited about what they were watching. Not necessarily because they hated wrestling now or anything, or they grew out of it or something like that. Maybe somewhere along the way, it just stopped feeling like something to them. This doesn't really apply to me personally, because like at a point, I just stopped watching everything. It just got hit in the crossfire in that. But even when I did return to watching things, I was kind of reluctant to start watching wrestling again. But eventually I did. I eased into it with WWE, and then I started reluctantly watching AEW, and then I really got into AEW. And I think that happened with a lot of people, and I think that is why AEW connected with so many people when it first started. Because whether you love AEW or hate AEW, if you watch it every week or if you barely watch it at all, I think one thing that is very hard to deny is that AEW made a lot of fans care about wrestling again. And I'm not about an AEW good, WWE bad, this video or anything. That's a very exhausting conversation. And this is really about, for a span of years, wrestling fans were watching wrestling, but they weren't invested in it at all anymore. A lot of people were just watching it out of routine or out of habit or out of the nostalgia of it. Like the excitement was fading. You knew what the show was going to be before it even started. And I feel like AEW brought an unpredictability back to wrestling that we hadn't had in a long time. Because I remember the early feeling that AEW had. The crowds were so loud. The wrestlers felt so different from one another and from any other wrestlers in the industry. The arenas were chaotic. It was really passionate and raw. And the people in the crowd genuinely wanted wrestling to win and succeed again. Like the entire industry of wrestling, the entire business of wrestling, they wanted it all to succeed, not just the one company. I think one of the big reasons why AEW connected emotionally with so many people is because it reminded the fans that wrestling could still feel exciting in different ways. And you could have every single style of wrestling in the same promotion. You could have technical wrestling, lucha libre, hardcore style, long-term stories, emotional character stories, international dream matches. You can have it all in the same company. And that variety made wrestling feel unpredictable again. Like you could be watching a crazy match between Speedball Mike Bailey and Kyle Fletcher, or Will Ospreay and Bryan Danielson, or Swerve Strickland and Adam Page, or Kenny Omega and Mascara Dorada. You never know what you're going to see. Or you can have Tony Storm unearthing a brand new style of character that we haven't seen, and it worked. Or someone literally destroying their body and putting their body through literally everything that is thrown at it and still climbing the mountain and becoming the world champion. You have people breaking into people's houses. You got people burning people's houses down, all in the span of 7 years. And I think the fans became emotionally invested in seeing all these worlds collide. And the crowds, I think, are the clearest example of all of it. I've been to WWE shows. I've been to independent shows. I've been to New Japan shows. I've been to AEW shows. And these crowds, and the AEW crowds aren't necessarily always louder or always perfect or anything like that, but they do feel different. I feel like at the WWE shows I'd been to alone, specifically the ones I went to alone, which I believe are all SmackDowns. I think I've only been to SmackDowns, as a matter of fact. Weekly shows, I've only been to SmackDowns, but I've also been to WrestleMania. When it came down to SmackDowns, especially the ones where I went to alone, it did feel like a lot of people were just sitting quietly waiting to be entertained. Like they were just kind of sitting there waiting to be entertained. It almost feels like the crowd is programmed into the speakers and it's just blasting out at certain points in the show. And it's like the people around you aren't doing anything. They're just sitting there watching. And in the Dynamites I've been to Rampages. I haven't been to Collision yet, but the Dynamites I've been to, it does feel like every single person in the building's emotionally participating in the show. When something big happens in AEW, the reaction is less like, man, that was cool. It feels more like, yo, I was there. We were all there. We were here. You can often feel that through the screen because I remember watching some stuff back too. A lot of that connection probably comes from AEW treating wrestling more like wrestling culture evolving actively rather than this set in stone television product. There's fans chanting for wrestlers before they've even become stars. We watched Harley Cameron become a pro wrestler in real time, pretty much. And the fans are just paying attention to everything down to the detail. And I feel like the wrestlers find ways to feed off that energy really quickly as well. And I also think that AEW brought back another way for fans to discover wrestlers. And I think AEW Dark helped with that a lot. I really wish AEW Dark was still here. But a lot of wrestling fans probably were missing that feeling of discovering new wrestlers. Because that was the first thing I did when I got back to watching wrestling. I started watching other promotions immediately when I saw AEW. I started watching New Japan instantly. I started watching Stardom immediately. Discovering new wrestlers, discovering new styles of wrestling, discovering people that weren't there yet. They're not stars yet, but they're about to be. And even with the bigger, more known stars of AEW, it still introduced a lot of people to the Kenny Omegas, the Kazuchika Okadas, the Kenosuke Takeshita's, the Banditos, the Young Bucks even. And for other fans that did know about these people, there were entirely new stars presented in front of them at the inception of AEW, with MJF's and Sammy Guevara's and Daniel Garcia's and Willow Nightingale's and Darby Allin's. Aussie Open got brought there. Some people were introduced to the Motor City Machine Guns through AEW. With those like one or two little appearances. I think when people feel like they're discovering something with the company instead of just consuming the content that comes from it, they become attached to it, which I think would be a big reason why AEW fans would be so passionate about it. I feel like maybe part of it may be even that AEW acknowledges that so many of these fans have been fans for so long and have followed some of these wrestlers nearly their entire career. So there is an emotional attachment to, I've watched this person go from a rookie to a vet. Essentially, it's like some of these people have seen, even like Chris Jericho, for example. Some of these fans have been watching Chris Jericho wrestle since the 90s, right? So when Jericho does something that's a reference to something from way back then, AEW acknowledges that some of the fans already know this. Some don't, but some of them do. So they don't treat it as if this is a learning experience for literally everybody. Because some people have already gone through all this. Some people have watched all this for so long. And a lot of the New Japan talent that comes over, AEW acknowledges that there are a lot of fans of AEW that have been fans for a long time and have been watching people over there for a long time too. So when they show up in AEW, they acknowledge some people already know what they're about to do. Some people already know what they're about. But some people, of course, are finding out for the first time. So they'll let you know a little bit about their history. But they're not going to treat you like you're dumb. I feel like people are very willing to give their money to, give their time to a place that doesn't treat them like they're dumb. Right? It doesn't feel like you're being patronized when the commentators are explaining someone's history. Right. Here's a few pretty important brief facts about this person. Here's some people they were affiliated with in the past. Here's some championships they won in places linear to where they are now. And for the people who've already seen these people and know what they're about, you can see what they are capable of against people they may have never even faced before, this far down the line. But you've walked this road with them, watching them from a distance. It feels like the crowds care about the wrestlers care about the crowd. It even feels like the crowd cares about the people backstage. It definitely brought back a feeling into wrestling at a time where a lot of fans really thought they lost it forever. And that's most likely why so many people come to AEW's defense so aggressively online. I feel like a lot of the fans, especially online, tie AEW to that feeling of reconnecting with wrestling itself. Some people might have stopped going to shows a decade ago, but all of a sudden they're back excited for shows again and discovering new wrestlers again. They want to go to shows. They want to watch shows weekly. They want to talk about wrestling with their friends again. They want to stay up late watching back old matches from like 8-10 years ago in other promotions. It's like, yeah, the connection's there. So pretty much, even if AEW isn't your favorite wrestling company, I think it's hard to deny what it brought back into wrestling culture and to the industry as a whole actively. It brought back an energy, it brought back a passion, it brought back variety, and it brought that community for a lot of fans. And for a lot of fans, AEW reminded them why they fell in love with professional wrestling in the first place. If you really want to know what I think about the forced hate that AEW's been getting for the last couple of years, you can watch this video and get off my video.